The monks who buried themselves alive, St. Luke's forgotten order. Greater than, in the darkness of stone, they prayed not for life, but for death to look upon them kindly. Prologue. The Lost Manuscript. In the winter of 1887, British antiquarian Edmund Clark discovered a crumbling bundle of vellum pages in the back of a Viennese bookshop. The cover bore only a single phrase in Latin. Greater than Ordo Sancti Luci Penitens. The Penitent Order of St. Luke. The manuscript was written in a spidery Gothic hand, its ink faded but legible. It spoke of monks who, consumed by guilt and fear, sought salvation not in life, but in entombment, praying themselves to death in the cold embrace of stone. Clark's translation was never published. The few who read it whispered it was cursed, its pages leaving readers haunted by nightmares of chanting voices in darkness. Shortly after completing his work, Clark took his own life. What follows is a reconstruction, the forgotten story of the monks who buried themselves alive. Part 1. The Birth of the Stone Sepulchre. In the late 12th century, Christendom reeled from famine, plague, and endless wars. Far from the great cities, hidden in the Carpathian foothills, rose a modest stone monastery, its walls as gray as the mountain mist. It bore the name Monasterium Sancti Luci, dedicated to St. Luke the Penitent, a minor figure, venerated only in local lore for an act of self-imposed isolation to atone for unknown sins. Its founder, Father Theodoric, was no ordinary abbot. Born to a wealthy family, he turned his back on the world after a plague carried off his kin. Rumor claimed he had once been a man of violence, though no record survives to confirm it. Obsessed with the question of salvation, Theodoric retreated to the mountains, believing that true redemption required not only confession but complete self-denial, even self-annihilation. His teachings attracted a handful of monks, men broken by guilt, grief, or madness. Together, they formed the Servants of the Stone Sepulchre, an order whose secret vows defied even the harshest asceticism of the time. Part 2. The Vow. Among the scattered scrolls found centuries later, one fragment remains legible. Greater than, we vow to die to the world before death claims us, to bury flesh that soul may rise, and to await God's mercy entombed in living prayer. The vow was known as Claudere Vivens, to close oneself alive. After years of strict fasting, silence, and prayer, a monk of St. Luke's would enter the final penance. In the lowest crypts of the monastery, each brother carved for himself a narrow cell of stone, scarcely larger than a grave. Once inside, the cell was sealed with mortar and stone by fellow monks, leaving only a thin channel for air and whispered prayer. For days, sometimes weeks, the buried monk chanted ceaselessly in darkness, clinging to faith as the body failed. When at last the voice fell silent, the channel was closed, and the cell became a permanent tomb. To the monks, this was the purest offering, living death, chosen freely. Part 3. The Stone Cells. The monastery's crypts, as described in the manuscript, were a labyrinth of corridors carved into the bedrock. Flickering torchlight revealed rows of sealed cells, each marked with a carved cross and a single name. Those who survived longest in prayer before death were revered as saints among the order, though the outside church knew nothing of them. No burial ground adorned the monastery. The dead were already entombed within its walls. Part 4. Father Theodoric's Vision. Legend holds that Theodoric himself was the first to undertake the living burial. In his final sermon, he warned his brothers. Greater than, we are dust, and to dust we return, but in dust, we may yet find grace denied to flesh. On the eve of his entombment, he confessed for hours, voice breaking under the weight of unspoken sins. Then, at dawn, he descended into the crypts, crawling into the stone cell prepared for him. For 3 days, the monks above heard his chants echo faintly through the air channels. On the 4th day, silence fell. They sealed the last opening, and the founder's tomb became the heart of the monastery. Part 5. The Hidden Chronicle. Centuries later, a monk named Brother Stephen secretly questioned the practice. His entries, found among the ruins, reveal a growing doubt. Greater than, what if we bury not sin, but hope? What if silence is not the voice of God, but the grave's hollow promise? But fear kept him silent. To doubt was itself a sin, and the penalty was the same living death, though it would come sooner. Brother Stephen recorded the burial of 20 brothers during his lifetime. Each time, the chanting would fade to silence, replaced by a cold stillness that seemed to seep through the stone. Greater than, when the last voice falls, it is not peace that follows, but dread. Part 6. The Black Mass. One winter, a terrible plague swept the nearby villages. Desperate peasants came to the monastery, pleading for help. But the monks, fearing contagion, barred the gates. Haunted by guilt, Father Petrus, the abbot then, declared a black mass of absolution, an act of collective entombment. Each monk prepared his own cell. At midnight, they gathered in the crypt, chanting hymns so soft they trembled in the cold air. Then, one by one, they entered the stone cells. Novice monks, still too young to take the vow, sealed their elders inside. It is said that, for nearly a week, the novices heard the muffled prayers of 20 monks, rising like a funeral wind through the vents. Then silence came, heavy as earth. The novices fled, unable to bear the quiet. None returned. Part 7. The silence after. Abandoned, the monastery fell into ruin. Roofs collapsed under winter snow. Ivy climbed the broken walls. The crypts below, untouched by sun, remained intact, sealed, silent, and filled with the bones of the penitent dead. Over generations, shepherds and hunters avoided the place, whispering that the monks still prayed in their stone graves. At night, some claimed to hear faint chanting underfoot. Part 8. Rediscovery. In the late 17th century, local peasants led Jonas Markovich, a minor scholar, to the ruins. His letters, preserved in the archive of a small Slovakian monastery, describe what he saw. Greater than, the crypt entrances lie half buried in earth. Within, narrow cells stand sealed, some broken open by time. Inside, the remains of men seated in endless prayer, spines curved, skulls bowed, as though they died mid-whisper. Markovich took a single artifact, a wooden cross etched with Latin words. Greater than, Claudier vivens, close oneself alive. Shortly after his return to Vienna, Markovich died of fever. The cross vanished from record. Part 9. The Last Testament. One final parchment, signed only Brother Stefan, survives. It is brittle and stained, words fading like breath. Greater than, we sought to bury sin, yet found only the silence of stone. Pray for us, if these words reach the world. And should you find our tombs, speak not, lest you wake what still stirs in darkness. Part 10. Epilogue. Today, historians debate whether the servants of the stone sepulchre truly existed. No papal decree mentions them, no official record lists their names. Yet among villagers who live near the ruins of St. Luke's monastery, stories linger. On moonless nights, they say, the earth seems to hum with voices. And sometimes, if you listen too long, you'll hear the soft echo of chanting rising from below, prayers that never ended. The monks who buried themselves alive still pray in darkness, seeking forgiveness that may never come. Author's note: fictional. Greater than, these pages are but fragments, scattered by time and silence. May they serve as a warning. Faith, when twisted by fear, can bury the living before death arrives. Edmund Clark, 1880.